Welcome to the Sober Edge podcast, inspiration for alcohol-free living. I'm your host, Terry Patterson, functional nutritionist and This Naked Mind senior coach. The Sober Edge is a place to explore the infinite possibilities on the other side of drinking. In a culture soaked in booze, discover the wonder and joy of taking a different path. Meet real people living lives of purpose and passion, learn the truth behind the alcohol myths, and get ready to be motivated, inspired, and astounded by what is possible with the Sober Edge. Well, hey everyone, it's Terry, and welcome back to another edition of the Sober Edge podcast. If you're listening to this in real time, it is holiday week for us here in the United States because in a couple of days it will be Thanksgiving. And Thanksgiving is traditionally for the United States a holiday where we celebrate with gratitude, all the things that we enjoy as Americans, that we are privileged to have. We look back at our ancestor days, the Indians, the Pilgrims, and it's kind of a made up story about how we got to America and celebrated the first Thanksgiving. But the root of the holiday I love because it really is about focusing on what we have, not what we don't have. And so for you who are here in the United States, and for all of you who are my listeners and my warm audience, I want to invite you to be a part of something as I say thank you to all of you. So you may or may not know that one of the offerings I have out in the world is the Sober Edge Book Club. And it has been so much fun to have all the sober ladies gathered together to read books from quitlets to memoirs to fiction. We have been having such a good time. We've recently got some brand new authors coming in and doing author spotlights and sharing their books. And so we are just diving into reading together, growing together, and, really experiencing time together in community. And as a thank you, I wanted to invite you to join us for the month of December as a member for free. So I'm going to put all the links in the show notes, but this is my gift to you. If you are interested in joining us in the Ladies Only Sober Edge Book Club, I would love to invite you to take advantage of the December free month as my thank you gift. I'm always so grateful that people tune into the podcast, read my newsletters, reach out and share their thoughts with me. And I love that I get to do this work. And so this is my way of saying thank you. And my partner, Sarah, has been so generous to share that, yes, this is an amazing idea. So come, bring your friends, give it a try. Join us for the month of December. We're reading an amazing book, and we have an amazing author who will be coming and joining us. And so you can find out all the details in the show notes. And the second thing I want to talk about today is habits. And I've talked about habits a little bit before, but today I wanted to record an episode that puts a slightly different emphasis on habits. We often hear that, drinking is just a habit, or I've fallen into the habit of drinking every night. And usually, that's part of the equation, but there's often a lot more to it. And, so I think it's really valuable to take a look at ways we can explore our habits. And the part that is a habit, we can kind of take a crack at that and make some changes around why am I drinking more than I want to, and what part has become just habitual. So the reason that habits has kind of been on my mind is I am facilitating a small group book study from the book of a favorite author of mine, Gretchen Rubin. The book is called Better Than Before. And I love that title. And Gretchen actually wrote this book in 2015. So right around the time that I stopped drinking. And I think I found the book about a year later. But Gretchen talks about many of the same principles we've heard in the recent popular book by James Clear called Atomic Habits. And I love Gretchen's take because she really is so practical, and she really explores habits in a way that really checked all the boxes for me and helped me understand the important part of habit making. So, from the work of BJ Fogg and James Clear, we think about, the habit reward loop. And so, we get a trigger, and then we have a cue, and then we have a response, and then we have a reward. But Gretchen actually comes at it from a bit of a different place. And I think this is really powerful when it comes to exploring habits and habit changes. And so she really talks about the idea that our habits are based on in us as an individual, which is why it's so refreshing for me, because we may want to adopt a habit that we see somebody else have, and we may struggle with adopting that habit, whether it be running every day or journaling every day or being a really good gift giver, buying presents throughout the year. And we can sometimes look at this as a place where maybe we fall short. And rather than falling short, what Gretchen introduces to the conversation is this idea that our habits are based on us as individuals. And so Gretchen really starts with self-knowledge. She talks about how important it is to know ourselves before we get all caught up in the habits we want to make and the habits we want to break. And so this book, Better Than Before, really is powerful because it allows us to explore the idea that we are going to form habits based on how we're wired and our personality and the things that work best for us. And so it's kind of a deep dive into not only habits, but just learning more about ourselves. So I realized as I was setting up the book study that I use so many of these Gretchenisms, these little phrases, and these frameworks for looking at habits. I use them in my own life and my coaching life all the time. And so it's been so much fun to dive back into the book. Like I said, I think I read it in 2016, but I have a full confession. I have read the book so many times, and it is so dog-eared and underlined that the back cover actually went missing. I don't know when, but the book is falling apart basically because it is well loved and well referenced. So today, I thought it might be helpful to share just a few of the tidbits that Gretchen lays out in the book. And I want to start with her Habits Manifesto. And from there, I want to share with you the ways that I have used some of these habit manifestos in my life and in my work as a coach. And I really hope this is helpful to you. I think that we put a lot of pressure on ourselves of making these really drastic changes at the end of a year and the beginning of a new year. And I hope this will help bring some realism and some guidance toward how we might do this in a way that feels expansive rather than constrictive. So again, the book Better Than Before by Gretchen Rubin, it was written in 2015, and it's kind of been my habit Bible. So the Habits Manifesto that she shares at the very beginning of the book, I think there are 10 or 11. So the first one, what we do every day matters more than what we do once in a while. What we do every day matters more than what we do once in a while. And isn't it true? We can focus on making grandiose changes, but if we are not doing things day in and day out and creating a routine and an identity and a pattern, then it doesn't really matter what we do once or twice a year. For some things, it certainly does, but What we do every day matters most is really what she's saying. And this is number one of her habits manifesto. And they're in no particular order. The second one she talks about is make it easy to do right and hard to go wrong. So I share this with my clients all of the time, whether I'm working with someone about with nutrition or I'm working with someone about their alcohol use disorder. It's really powerful to think that we have more power than we think when we set ourselves up to make it easy. So, for example, if you are someone who is trying to drink less and yet you continually stock your favorite drink and it's sitting in the refrigerator or on the counter, it's going to be difficult to resist because of the pattern that you've had of going to get the drink every evening or, at lunchtime, whenever you would have a drink. And so make it easy to do the right thing. And that would be remove the alcohol from the house. That way there's a barrier before you go out you'd have to go out into the world and go shopping and go to the store and get your drink of choice. And so there's a barrier there of convenience, right? So that's number 2. And number 3 is focus on actions, not outcomes. I heard this first a long time ago, and it was said to me this way: with enough activity, the outcome is guaranteed. So, for example, someone who wants to, and maybe it wasn't guaranteed, that might be an absolute, but for someone who wants to make a healthy change, such as going to the gym and losing weight, we can focus on going to the gym more regularly, increasing the length of time we spend. That focus on activity and action will lead to feeling healthier, perhaps losing weight. If we only focus on the outcome, we may miss the very important part, which is that consistent action. So let's see. Number 4, she says, by giving something up, we may gain. Now, this is so crystal clear to me when it comes to this alcohol-free journey. It's so powerful when we think about all the ways we think we're going to give up alcohol and there's nothing in return, like it's all bad, oh, I'm going to miss out. I won't have fun anymore. My friends won't want to hang out with me. But when we embrace this alcohol-free lifestyle, we in fact find the exact opposite, that by giving up one thing, we're gaining everything. And that is true for so many of the habits that we want to make and break. And then she goes on to say, as part of her Habits Manifesto, things often get harder before they get easier. It's a great reminder. We have to have a little bit of gumption and stick-to-itiveness. We have to have a little bit of persistence and perseverance and perspective in order to create lasting change. Let's see. When we give more to ourselves, we can ask more from ourselves. All of these little sage sentences that make up this habit manifesto, she goes deep into them within the book. But this one I think is so powerful because it really speaks to self-compassion and self-care. And we've heard it said a number of different ways, such as you can't give from an empty cup, can't pour from an empty cup. Put your own oxygen mask on first. But it is such a great reminder that when we give more to ourselves, we can ask for more from ourselves. And so if we set up a habit change and it's all doom and gloom and bad and hard and dark, it's going to be challenging. And so we can give something to ourselves. Sometimes with this alcohol-free journey, we look at maybe having a carrot or something to look forward to. What are we going to do to celebrate 90 days alcohol-free, 6 months alcohol-free? Can I reward myself in some way so that I'm giving to myself, so that I can ask for myself to do hard things? Let's see. She goes on to say, we're not very different from other people, but those differences are very important. We often think that our alcohol-free journey, we get on this comparison trap where it should look the same way, or why is it that this person read a book and then stopped drinking with no problem? Why is it that I'm struggling more than the people I see out there on the same journey? And we can get into that comparison trap. And so this is so helpful to remember. The differences are very important. And so again, one of the things I love about this book by Gretchen Rubin is she does such a great job of letting us know that this is based on knowing ourselves, setting habits that work for us day in and day out and over the long haul requires us to know ourselves better. And part of that is noticing and understanding what those very important differences are. Let's see. It's easier to change our surroundings than ourselves. So I think that this speaks to a wide range of habits and making and breaking habits. And so I think about circumstances, and sometimes just setting ourselves up for success requires us to make sure that we are not sabotaging ourselves. And I think it was James Clear who talked about, putting your running shoes out the night before if you want to work out the next day. And so we can expect that if our surroundings make it easier, then it's going to be easier for us to follow through. We can't make people change, but when we change, others may change. I have seen this again and again in coaching alcohol-free women and men, and in my own life. We see often that one of our main concerns might be in the beginning of our journey that, well, gosh, my spouse or all my friends, they drink so much. Or every time I hang out with this friend, all we do is drink. But yet what we find is when we change our drinking habits and we show up and we're not drinking, people often drink less. And most of the alcohol-free people that I talk to, when I ask them about their spouse, they will share that, they drink much less than they used to if they were kind of equal drinkers. So we see that our behavior has an influence. And so one of the things that I run up against, and I know I've talked about this before, but I think it bears repeating. One of the stories that we can carry around making this change around alcohol is that, everybody around me is going to, they're not going to like what I'm doing, and I won't fit in anymore, and they're not going to understand, and there's going to be a lot of pressure, and things might change. I'm going to lose all my friends. And I always tell people that the truth is that when we change, the people around us are going to have a response because we're showing up differently. Now, sometimes the story we're telling ourselves is that response is going to be bad. It's going to be negative. But that's not always true. In fact, many times the opposite is true. And they actually respond much more positively than we had imagined. So yes, when we change, the people around us will change. Because they are having a new response. We've changed. The way we're interacting is slightly different or vastly different. And so we may inadvertently change someone's behavior by simply changing ourselves. We can't force people to change. People don't take advice they didn't ask for. And, if somebody's changing to support you on your alcohol-free journey or because they feel forced to, it's often not a lasting change. And so we have so much influence when we show up and share the positive effects of our habit changes. And that's where we might see people change in response to how we have changed. Let's see. We should make sure the things we do to feel better don't make us feel worse. And I think where this really shines and where I've embraced this in my own life is to pause now and then and ask, is this change that I made eating a certain way or in my sleep habits or who I'm hanging out with or how I'm navigating something that might be challenging in a relationship? Is this better? Is it working for me? Is it still working for me? It's so powerful to adjust. And we have to bring up what's really going on, almost do like a state of the union, every once in a while, every couple times a year, at least once a year, and say, is this still working for me? Because we want to make sure that these changes that we made are not making us feel worse about ourselves or making things harder. And then she goes on to say, we manage what we monitor. And this is, again, something that is really powerful when it comes to our alcohol free journey. If you're thinking, how do I get started? The first place to start is just noticing where you're at. How often am I drinking? What are my thoughts around drinking? What do I think drinking is going to provide for me? What kind of relief am I looking for? What happens when I'm away from home? Am I drinking more or less? What happens when I'm in a boozy environment? Am I drinking more or less? And all of that. And so we manage what we monitor. It's so powerful. When I work with people in a nutrition journey, one of the things I have them do is keep a very simple food journal. Just simply write down what you ate, how you felt a couple of hours later, and did you poop? I call it the food, mood, poop journal. And from those 3 observations, we can gain so much information. And the reality is that when we are just kind of relying on our own memory, we're not really monitoring. We're just, clueless sometimes. Or we can say, like, oh, yeah, I didn't eat very much, or I didn't drink very much, or I got great sleep this week. But if we were to monitor it, we might actually find that the reality is different. And so, one of the most powerful things we can do when we're looking for habit change is start with where we're at. What am I eating for each meal? How many times a day do I eat? Am I snacking in between meals? Do I tend to get enough protein? I recently had a client say, I'm really bad at eating enough protein. I suck at it. And I was like, wow, is it possible that maybe you're just confused? And so as we started working together and she started monitoring her protein, she found it much more simple to pay attention. And then she could see where she needed to make changes or tweaks or add in or subtract. And the reality was she wasn't lazy or bad at it. She just didn't have the right tools of monitoring. And then finally, once we're ready to begin now. So this goes back to something I've shared before, but I think it's so powerful to remind ourselves that we should not put off the change that we're seeking for perfect circumstances. Sometimes people will inquire about working with me as their coach. They want to hire me to help them with their alcohol-free journey. And they sometimes will ask, well, when should we start? And it's like, oh my goodness, we should start now when motivation is high, because getting into momentum, following through is going to be powerful. When we are ready to begin, that's the time to start. That's the time when we have the biggest why in our heart. There's a reason. We have the most momentum. We're feeling pushed and pulled to make this change. There's a lot of power in that. And so, we can wait and wait and wait for, after the holidays I'll start, or after that big birthday, or, I'm going on that summer vacation. We can put things off, but the best time to begin is when you're ready to begin. So, that's what I have for you today. I'm super excited to be facilitating this small group on this Better Than Before book study. If you want in, there's still enough time. We just read a few pages our first week. We're kicking off on November 21st, but you are absolutely welcome to join. It's an 8-week short study, and I think there's going to be a lot of power behind it because, as you can see from just these few statements and this manifesto, that there is a lot to unpack when it comes to habits, and there's a lot to know about ourselves. So I hope you are exploring where you want to grow and allowing that there is a simpler way, perhaps, to do it when it comes to habit change. And then also maybe letting go of the idea that drinking is just a habit. There's a lot of layers to it, and it's powerful to use what we know about habits to give us that edge, that sober edge that I talk about. So I hope this has been helpful. I love sharing these takeaways. They come right from the place where I am right now. And again, if you are interested in studying more about habits, you're welcome to look into the Better Than Before book study. I'll link it in the show notes. But also, you can grab Gretchen's book, Better Than Before, and see what you can learn about yourself when it comes to how are you following through, making habits, discerning when to start and when to stop. There is so much to be said for knowing ourselves better. And then rather than making ourselves wrong, we can play to our strengths. So here's to you finding your strengths and becoming better than before. And again, if you are in the United States, I wish you a very happy Thanksgiving. And don't forget to take advantage of my very own thank you to you, because with a full heart, full of gratitude, I really do appreciate you so much and would love to gift you a free month in the Sober Edge Book Club. So once again, I hope you have a wonderful week, and I'll see you next time. Hey, I want to thank you for tuning in and listening to The Sober Edge. This is a place to have important conversations and a safe place to question everything you thought you knew about drinking. If you're looking for your sober edge, I invite you to connect with me at thesobernutritionist.com, where you can grab my free resource, 5 Healthy Reasons to Take a Break. And I would be grateful if you would take a moment to rate and review this podcast so together we can reach more people who are looking for their sober edge.